Sports build champions and leaders, but every champion has moments of struggle, pressure, anxiety, burnout, and those moments deserve real support. PAX Health is proud to sponsor the New Jersey Lacrosse Podcast because they believe mental health care should be available when you need it, as you need it. Therapy and psychiatric services for kids, teens, communities, and families. Telehealth and in-person appointments are available within 48 hours. PAX Health, people helping people. Visit pax.health. That's PAX.health. Lacrosse families, meet Orgo, the calendar app that actually thinks like a sports parent. Orgo syncs with team apps you already use and enriches schedules with real-world logistics. Every event shows travel times, early arrival buffers, carpool assignments, conflict alerts, and time-specific weather so you know what gear to pack. Get your athletes on it too. Orgo teaches time literacy, an executive skill for life. One subscription, whole family. Code LAX25 is 25% off. Just $44 locks in sanity for the whole year. Visit www.orgohq.com. That's www.orgohq.com. JAG Physical Therapy, providing rehabilitative recovery from sports and soft tissue injuries to knee, foot, ankle, hip, shoulder, elbow, and back injuries. Schedule your appointment with JAG Physical Therapy today and meet their experienced team of physical therapists, occupational therapists, athletic trainers, and exercise physiologists invested in your full recovery. Get back the life you love at JAG Physical Therapy, the most awarded physical therapy provider in New Jersey, New York, and Pennsylvania. For more information or to make an appointment, just visit jagpt.com. That's JAGPT.com. This is the New Jersey Lacrosse Podcast. I'm your host, Keith Glock.
I'm Bill Farr.
I'm Anthony Terranova.
And this here is Gil Swenson. Welcome to the New Jersey Lacrosse Podcast. Welcome indeed to week 14 of the 2026 New Jersey Lacrosse Podcast. Back at home where everything feels safe, everything feels wonderful. No Gil, so it's really just like any other week. Boys, how we doing?
Great, man. We got playoff time. We're here. We're in the stretch now. Final stretch.
Mr. Tharp, as we enter the final stretch that Terranova mentions, how you feeling? Happy Memorial Day.
I'm great. I got to I was honored to be the godfather for my cousin today. His little boy Andrew got to be the godfather today, so it's a really, really special day. My wedding anniversary is right around the corner, so it's a special few days here, and it's playoff time, so love it.
Look, somebody's got to get on the horn to Pope Leo and just be like, listen, lacrosse season and these baptisms, confirmations, and all this stuff is just, we got to kick this back a couple weeks here because right on Memorial Day weekend is truly inconvenient for the lacrosse people. I'm not gonna lie. Anyway, it's another story for another time. Well, boys, we have relatively little to talk about from last week, and we are now on the precipice of the playoffs, so that means probably a little bit to talk about this week, and we'll get into what that means. Top 20 really hasn't changed. We're kind of like in a little bit of a limbo period here in this week. Last week, really only two games that were super notable, worth talking about, and coincidentally, I officiated one of them and Terranova officiated the other one. So the first one that I want to get into is Del Barton St. Augustine, a midweek game. Nova, you were there firsthand. What happened? How did everything look? What's going on?
Yeah, it was battle of two of the, again, I think we have 5 teams that are up there in the running for best in the state, and it was 1 and 2 at the time for us based on our rankings, and it kind of lived up to the billing. Ended up being a 1-goal victory in St. Augustine's favor, but Del Barton led for most of the game. I don't think Augustine really ever led until they finally got the lead with like 3 minutes left in the game. So it was a very eventful game to say the least. It was great lacrosse across the board, clearly loaded with talent on both sides of the ball. But obviously, as watching the game, trying to dissect both those teams. I've seen St. Augustine before with an out-of-state competitor and haven't seen Del Barton in person. So, trying to get my full sense of kind of where these teams are, what the kind of look ahead is, and kind of, what is their potential come playoff time. I still believe that the 4 teams at the top of the non-public are all can be anyone on any given day. 100%. I have no doubt about that. But, just something that I think I noticed throughout the course of the game is, one, St. Augustine did a great job with face-offs and being able to, definitely withstand anything that was thrown at them throughout the course of the game. Both teams did a great job clearing around the ball, but it just felt like Del Barn was so reliant on Floater and getting him the ball as much as possible. He was down at attack throughout the course of the game, but they still moved him up to the midfield to, pretty much do the majority of his main dodging. But it was pretty much kind of just get him the ball a lot. And then, I think that was definitely something I was like, they have so much talent all over the field, spread out a little bit more, like to see a little bit more off ball than I was kind of really seeing at the time. And, as I'm going through and dissecting, I think that's kind of a point of like their whole season, at least, in New Jersey. Obviously, I haven't seen their out of state games, but the games that they've lost, he's been kind of locked up. One-on-one wise, he's not producing a ton of points. I mean, he's still scoring his goals because again, he's getting the ball every single time on every single possession. And if he's tired, they'll throw Hauser up top to get his turn and his run in. But when they find the most success against the best team was against Summit. Why was that? Even though they're in a zone, you can move him to dodge on a short stick every single time, and then he's a very good player, one of the best in the state, let alone country. So he's going to make plays and make you pay even in a zone when he's able to dodge short sticks, make it break down. And then Seton Hall, he wasn't really able to do that. Chatham wasn't really able to do that with some great LSMs for both those teams. St. Augustine, same thing. He wasn't really able to kind of find that one-on-one match success that I thought he would more so in this game than the other two games, more so in Chatham and Seton Hall. But he still, I don't want to say struggle. He still got his, but it wasn't as explosive and dynamic as I thought it was going to be. And I think that's something to look going forward. That one is Del Barn going to be able to kind of spread the ball out a little bit more. And get these other great guys more space, more working off ball, kind of just like watching one guy dodge, and if one guy's tired, they just bring in the next guy to do the same exact thing. I think if they do that and manage that, I still think they're the best team in the state, top to bottom. But if they kind of continue to play the same way that they have been playing, I think there's a reason why they haven't beaten those teams, top teams in New Jersey right now, because obviously they're all greatly coached and able to kind of game plan, for those same things that I saw when they have been watching probably nonstop game film of all of them throughout the season, seeing probably the same thing that I saw in just, one game, 2 games that I've now watched, Del Barton play. That was a long-winded answer, but it was a great game, and I look forward to the potential rematch somewhere down the line. But, like I said, any one of these teams at the top 4 can certainly take this whole thing.
I would agree with that. It's been a great year at the top for sure. The other notable game from last week was the Shore Conference Tournament final, which I'll vent for a moment of the Shore Conference playing the game at Monmouth, which on its face you'd be like, great, it's an event, it's at Monmouth, it's wonderful. In the years when the football stadium was under renovation and Monmouth's lacrosse team was playing on the soccer field, which has lights, the Shore Conference Tournament final could be played at night on that soccer field, and now it's not lined for lacrosse anymore. So it's back in the football stadium, which does not have lights, and it just so happened on Thursday that CBA was graduating and Rumson had the prom, and we played at 2:00 in the afternoon. So that's not good for anybody, let alone a good crowd. I mean, and yeah, like we're parents and stuff there, and did they get a little boisterous? For sure, but it's nothing like the night games that I've been around at the Shore Conference tournament final, where the atmosphere just is very, very electric. Rumson ended up winning the game 9-8. I really thought Rumson was in control of the game. That's how it felt out on the field for most of the game. It was 9-5 very late in the game, and CBA scored 3 goals at the end of the game in the last couple minutes, honestly, to get it to 9-8. I caught a little hate, apparently, because I took away a goal from from CBA on a crease dive that was pretty clearly a crease dive. I don't really know why I was getting some hate. I guess somebody thought he got pushed in the back, which he definitely didn't. So it's one of those things that if you watch, you spend the weekend watching college lacrosse and you're like, well, that's the same thing that the CBA kid did. Well, the rules are different between high school and college. This is one of the major differences. You cannot leave your feet of your own volition in high school, jumping or diving, and it doesn't matter how you land in the crease. If you land in the crease, it doesn't even matter if you're fouled. If you leave your feet on your own and then you get pushed, and you still can't have a goal on that play. You might have a penalty, but on that particular play where I got a little bit of hate, there was neither a push and he landed in the goal on his own. So in the crease on his own, I should say. So that was that. I thought CBA didn't shoot the ball very much in the first half. That was the one note that I took away. And the CBA goalie played outstanding. Had an absolute ton of saves, and not just like the ones he's supposed to make. In tight, I thought he was impressive. And if CBA had won the game, I thought he would have certainly been the most valuable player in the game. But Rumson just continues to roll on. They're an impressive unit right now, and they're going. And we'll see if anybody can stop them as the playoffs get going. So as we move forward and we look forward, the state seeding meeting was also this week, and the brackets were revealed on NJ.com. And guys, I thought, Tharp, if you just want to go through the top, top 1, 2. Top 4, I leave it to you within each of the groups, so we're not reading off a bajillion names here. Just give us who's at the top first, and then I'll get us into maybe some of the games to watch and why they're the games to watch.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go in size order. So starting with 1 North, and I'm gonna be a little frank here, guys. Kind of starts and ends with Mountain Lakes. 2 seed Ramsey, 3 seed Jefferson, 4 seed Newton. But I think we're all pretty good with Mountain Lakes is gonna be able to kind of roll through this one.
Agreed. Keep rolling.
All right. Moving on to North 2. Get a tad more flavor here. We got West Morris at the 1, Sparta at the 2, Homedale at the 3, Cranford at the 4. I think it's going to be interesting who comes out of the bottom half of that bracket. I know you guys haven't been assigned any games yet, so I'm not looking for anything not looking for you guys to make any predictions, but what do you think of that top 4?
Prognostications, was that the word you were looking for there, Darby?
You know what, Glock? It's been a long day. I was stumbling over that, and I was never going to get to the finish line. So,
yeah,
happy to assist.
Just kind of sum it up here, so we don't gotta kind of labor. It's just, I think the brackets are too big at the end of the day. I think these first couple rounds, in the public schools are very lopsided. I think there's maybe 2 or 3 good games that you're gonna, even touch base on over the course of this first round, that have potential to even be like close games. Obviously they're gonna be, 8-9s, maybe 1 7-10, but other than that, it's very, very spread out, very lopsided. There's going to be a lot of games that are going to be decided in the first quarter this week, which is unfortunate because that's how you kind of hate your season. And there's a lot of different ways that I would love to counter and combat it, but I don't think that this is the podcast to kind of go about it. Whether it's lowering the seedings and having another week to play, or breaking up into more brackets, everything like that. But it's these 1 seeds, because again we're still using the lax numbers, thank the Lord, it's right on. These 1 and 2 seeds are going to be mostly deciding. I think Glock said in the group chat as well, I think there's been one 11 seed who's ever in a very long time of recent memory that has ever gotten even out of the first round. It's pretty cut and dry. I think last year there was 1 3 seed that got in the final in their group, but it was all pretty much 1 and 2s.
Yeah, round 1 is always that way. Tharpy, keep going here. What do you got? You went 1 North, 1 South. Give us 2 North.
Yeah. So this was 2 North. So we got West Morris, we got Sparta, Homedale, Cranford. I think West Morris pretty easily comes out of that top half of the bracket. I think Homedale versus Sparta will be an interesting matchup. I do think the one I hesitate to use the word positive, but I do think the one positive that's going to come out of PowerPoints next year is some of these first round matchups will become a little more interesting. Like we said, Haddonfield coming in at a 10 seed next year
I
makes it.
have I have some news. I have some news on that front, but I'm going to keep us
Oh,
on task here.
that's a tease.
It is
That's
it
a
is a
tease and a
tease.
half.
It's a tease. But let's keep us on task. I don't think we need to go
All right, all right, all right.
prognostications or any of that stuff. Just give us the top couple teams in each of these brackets. So this way, everybody has a sense for who's at the top, and then I'll take us into the games that we're interested in that we think could be competitive in round one, because we're going to be back for a pod next week, and we can keep looking at stuff as we go.
All right.
Okay.
3 North, I'm gonna go pretty deep. I think this is the best bracket. Chatham 1, Summit 2, Scotch Plains 3, Ramapo 4, Randolph the 5, Northern Highlands the 6. And I'll even give a little shout out to Morris Knolls at the 7. I think this is by far the best bracket. This is also the bracket to kind of put a bow on last week's conversation. Most impacted by the PowerPoints and lax numbers divide. Um, and after opt outs and stuff, we officially had 3 teams in Ridge, North Hunterdon, and Milburn not qualify, and those Mount Olive, Middletown North, and Nutley were the bid stealers in Group 3 North. So I think we kind of hammered it home last week, but uh, real travesty that especially Ridge not making the postseason. I think you know it's the ultimate kick in the gut as we end this chapter of lax numbers.
Okay. Keep rolling.
Definitely the best group.
Yep.
4 North, we have Ridgewood at the 1, Westfield at the 2, Bridgewater at the 3, Montclair at the 4, Livingston at the 5. Decent group. Decent group kind of thins out after number 5, but moving down south, South 1, really great group. Really, really strong group too. Um, we have Rumpson at the 1, Haddonfield at the 2, um, Madison at the 3, Glenridge at the 4, New Providence at the 5, Bernards at the 6. Our 7-10 matchup, Caldwell and Voorhees. So really deep group down in South 1. In South 2, little leaner, we got Ocean City at the 1, Manasquan at the 2, Robbinsville at the 3, Wall at the 4. In 3 South, also pretty thin. We got Shawnee at the 1, Morristown at the 2, Mainland, fresh off their Cape Atlantic championship at the 3. Probably the only real contenders there. And in 4 South, Southern at the 1, Kingsway at the 2, Washington Township at the 3, and then drops off a little bit to Cherokee there at the 4. So those are all the public school brackets. Glock, you want to touch on those a little bit, or do you want me to go through non-public as well?
The only thing that I have to say about as you read that is it continues to be a comedy show just based on the geography, because nothing says South Jersey lacrosse in the playoffs like Madison and Glen Ridge. Because when I think South Jersey lacrosse, I think Madison and Glen Ridge. That's great. So
famous South Jersey powers.
That's correct. That's correct. So yeah, go ahead to non-public.
Non-public, we got so this one ended up kind of becoming a little crazy. So the way that Lax numbers spit it out was Del Barton at the 1, Seton Hall at the 2, Don Bosco at the 3, St. Augustine at 4, which meant that Seton Hall jumped to the 1 seed. So Seton Hall got the 1, Del Barton got the 2, Don Bosco got the 3, St. Augustine the 4. And the funny thing is that St. Augustine has beat the number 1 and 2 seeds in their own bracket, but ended up at the 4 just because of how things turn out. But Nova, as you pointed out, St. Augustine has since jumped Del Barton, and they should be the number 1 seed. But unfortunately for them, the math for Seton Hall this time.
Yep.
And that was one day, right? It was like the seating meeting happened on a day,
It literally came down to the last
Yeah, because of the Del Barton win. So they were 4th, and they got the Del Barton win, and they jumped to 2nd. And then since they had they jumped to 3rd over Bosco, I believe. But then they had to head over both the other 2 teams, so they would have jumped into the 1st seed. So at the end of the day, I don't think those coaches care too much. We all said those top four are going to be the top four, but the biggest issue for me is the fact that they have to travel to a team that they beat, and it's a far ride. It's not a short ride, so that's definitely where, if anything, it's certainly going to kind of suck a little bit. But they're the best team in the state right now, as seen by being the top two teams in the bracket. So they're still going to be ready on game day. I don't think it's going to be much of an excuse. They've traveled up to away games, and they'll take care of business. They got to take care of business. But it's definitely probably one of the first where we see a team beat beat a team with the 1 seed and the 2 seed above them, and be all the way down at the 4 seed. It definitely has to be kind of a first.
Can I make a comment?
This
I
is a
think
podcast. That's all you do.
I think, and I don't even see it on lax numbers anymore, but no, but you probably remember this well. Remember back in the day they used to have an in-state ranking,
Yes,
and
because they used
I
that for a year.
right,
And
and
it
I
was
really
only in New
think
Jersey.
they need to bring that back for the non-publics because I do think, and I'm not going to pull it up right now because, um, but I do think that probably had some impact. It had to have, right? Because like Seton Hall beats Brunswick before the cutoff, so like
Right.
that is a massive point game.
And
Um,
Bar and being Chaminade by 10
right,
was
and
massive.
right, so like I do think that like at the end of the day, and like take our top 20 out of it, like I do think at the end of the day, you need to seed the state tournament based on your in-state opponents. Um, so I do think like, and now maybe that's where PowerPoints has the advantage over lax numbers. Is it kind of it reduces the weight of that Brunswick win. Now that's to be said. Seton Hall shouldn't be the 7 seed, but I don't think St. Augustine should be punished because they didn't get a chance to play Brunswick. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Yeah, but at the same time, my counterpoint is if you still take care of your schedule, like you're supposed to take care of your schedule, you'll be in good shape. If St. Augustine didn't only come out of Ocean City with a 4-goal win, which technically was a loss on if you're looking at the spread of what it should have been, they would have steadily had that 2 seed, and then would have jumped up. Then they would still have the 2 seed, and the team would have came down, and they wouldn't have played Double Barn at the time, so it doesn't really count because it was past the cutoff. But they would have been able to jump Seton Hall. Even if they were the 3rd seed, and again they're coming down and traveling there, so it all goes hand in hand. You still got to beat the teams that you have in front of them, and it's not like they're not going out there and trying to find great opponents and great games. But sometimes again, that's just when you're playing out of state teams, and when you are great teams like the 4 teams that we're mentioning, and they're going all over the place from Indiana to Long Island to Virginia and anywhere else to play great opponents. Sometimes this is just how it's kind of worked out. And unfortunately, again, we're only talking about travel. I think no matter what, I don't think when I'm looking at the top four brackets here, I'm like, oh well, kind of wish I went in that direction or that direction. Like any single day, Don Bosco can beat St. Augustine. St. Augustine can beat Del Barn can beat Seton Hall, and vice versa. So I just think it's the travel part. But at the end of the day, it's at least they're more to the point where they're seeing someone like a round that they shouldn't be seeing somebody in.
No
Yeah.
doubt.
I mean, like you said, it worked itself out, but I don't know if that's like a false positive. But it's not going to change, right? Like I said, it's probably only going to get worse, right? Like these guys, and especially the way we're going, like who's going to volunteer to play Del Barton? It's not going to be school XYZ. It's going to be the Chaminade, St. Anthony's,
Right.
Lawrenceville's of the world. So like I said, I feel in some ways, like I feel like St. Augustine is, they're stuck playing a lot of the PA privates and the PA schools, whereas, because they're not gonna travel up to Long Island, or Long Island's not gonna travel to them, whatever. But anyway, I digress.
I do want to point out because I think it's relevant. We talked a lot about it, but it was all in theory last week, and I want to just touch on the. I should be pissed off because we didn't make the playoffs because it was your qualification was based on PowerPoints, but if it was based on lax numbers, you would have made the tournament. And I'll just run through those real fast. In 1 North, Glen Rock and Pascack Hills. And Glen Rock would have been the number 8 seed, actually. Didn't qualify as a top 16 team in power points, and would have been in the 8. In 2 North, West Essex did not qualify, but would have. In 3 North, Ridge, North Hunterdon, and Milburn. And Ridge, obviously, I think would have been the 12 there. In 4 North, Peaburg. In 1 South, Governor Livingston. In 2 South, Triton. In 3 South, Central Regional. And in 4 South, Rancocas Valley. So those are all the teams that would have gotten in if we seeded in lax numbers, but did not, because even though the rankings were, we came up with the matchups based on lax numbers, we actually had qualified, not qualified was based on power points. So let's go to the games that we think are interesting here. We have 5 picked out of the first round because, as you alluded to, Tharp, the first round of the playoffs is typically very, very chalky. 8-9s are typically the only matchups where you see somebody who's a lower seed. A.L. Johnson a couple years ago as the 11, had an upset win in round 1, but outside of that, it's been 8-9 seeds in that game as the only thing that was in question over the last, I would have to go back and look, but it's the very...
Been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. That's a great way to put it. So the first one, Hopewell and Warren Hills. What do you think there, boys?
I think that it's to your words, Glock, it's an 8-9 game. I think both teams have some similar opponents with some similar results. I think Warren Hills on paper is probably a little more tested, playing the schedule they play, and Hopewell. They've been kind of riding up and down a little bit, but they seem to be playing better lately, upsetting Princeton in the Mercer County tournament. So I think it'll be a good game. Logan Healy is one of the better attackmen in the state, so look for him to have a good game.
Next one is Shore and A.L. Johnson.
Yeah, I think it's kind of the same similar boat that Tharp kind of just talked about. I think that's going to be the similar nod for all these. It's just one team is a little bit more battle tested than the other, but both teams are going to have it. It really comes down to these teams, their playmakers. Are their top playmakers going to make more plays than the other team's top playmakers? And I think that's definitely something that we're going to, look at for kind of all these games, that, are, 8-9 seeds, 7-10 seeds as we kind of go through here.
Next one, Bernards and Verona.
Yeah, I think this one could be a little interesting. I think obviously Bernards is going to have the best player on the field in Logan Stevens, but as we said in the group chat and we've talked about this year, Dave G. Russo is one of the best coaches in the state. I think Verona has a really solid faceoff guy. I scouted Verona. They played one of our opponents, so I got to watch them play. They play a really unique style. They like to get up and go. So I think it'll be interesting. On the other hand, if Logan Stevens just gets 10 goals, then Bernards wins this one pretty comfortably. But I think Verona's had one of the best seasons of program history. So I'm excited for them to get a chance to keep competing.
Next one, we have a South Jersey, Central North Jersey matchup in Lenape, South Brunswick. What do you guys think of there?
Don't really have any thoughts on this one. I haven't really been able to see both teams play like I have for most of the teams that we've kind of already mentioned. But I assume that this is, on lax numbers, looks like it might be a good game and one we certainly wanted to point out.
I had South Brunswick earlier in the year, and I was talking to head coach Kyle Higgins the other day for something unrelated. But I don't think anybody's watching some of these games and being like, this is a team that's going to win the state title. Okay, it's not what we're saying here, but I can tell you that there are things that, like, I've been doing this a long time now, and I'm like, you know what? I like some of the things I see, either from coaches or from players, and it may not always translate into wins, but I said it to Kyle. I had them against Petty, and they lost the game, and it wasn't particularly close. And I said to him, maybe with a minute to go in the game, I happened to be in front of their bench, and I said, boy, you guys coach these kids hard from the first whistle to the last whistle. And like to me, that's what this is about. Like that's what the whole sport is about. Those are the kind of things that I think that kids will look back on in 10 years and go like, man, we probably weren't that great at lacrosse, but like our coaches like really gave a crap, And I'm like, that to me is like just there's such positive signs and positive reflections of things. So, I mean, and I don't know, I hope that that's how it was for them all season long because it was just such a positive. But that's all I have on that one. And the last one, the one that I think it's not an 8-9 game, but one that you guys feel will be the most interesting of the first round games, and that is Caldwell and Voorhees.
Yeah, I personally think this is the best game in terms of talent that we've kind of went through, and also the ability that it could go in either direction. I think Voorhees has been a little up and down with their season, but they definitely have some players that can put the ball in the back of net, some good defensive pieces. And Caldwell is kind of the same way. They got one or two guys that can absolutely light up the scoreboard. They have an unbelievable goalie in Jacob Nat. So I think just kind of putting those two things together, I think they're going to be a much closer game than we expect in a lot of these kind of first round games going forward.
All right, let's get to our top 20. Then I'll give you my news, and then we can do our stall warning. I don't know if you saw the stall warning. I threw it in the sheet Nova. Tharp and I had a chance to talk about it before you hopped on. So take a look at it and come up with one that you were a part of and one that you watched. And that's a tease for what the stall warning is, guys. But let's get to our top 20. And probably not going to spend a ton of time on it because there's a lot of people standing pat because there wasn't a lot going on last weekend. Mountain Lakes drops down to number 20 from 17. And then we had two teams pop back into the top 20. St. Joe's Regional at number 19. And Pingree back in at 18 after being unranked last week. Notre Dame moves up 2 spots to 17. And then everything remains unchanged from 16 down to 6. Bridgewater 16, Bergen Catholic 15, West Morris at 14, Gill at 13, CBA 12, Westfield 11, Ridgewood 10, Rumson Fairhaven 9, Scotch Plains at 8, Shawnee 7, and Don Bosco 6. Del Barton drops from number 2 to number 5. And then Seton Hall up a spot from 5 to 4. Chatham up a spot from 4 to 3. Summit up a spot from 3 to 2. And St. Augs remains at number 1. Anything notable that you guys want to talk about within the top 20?
Nope.
All
the same for me.
I think I'm going. And Gil's not here, and Gil and usually get the most angry at each other. But Tony made this change too, so this will be probably a more civil conversation than Gil and I would have had. But the biggest thing that I didn't get was why Del Barton was dropped this week as opposed to last week. I think the only thing that changed from last week to this week was Del Barton loses by 1 goal to St. Augustine, a team that they were supposed to lose to on paper, right? They were number 2. St. Augustine was 1 goal game. Nova officiated everything he told us. Everything he spoke about in the pod, made it sound like it was an incredibly competitive, well played game. So for me, I just didn't understand why Del Barton got dropped this week when nothing really changed from the week prior. That was the feedback that I was going to give that I really didn't understand.
Yeah, I think for me it was just kind of encompassing those 6 teams. We're including Bosco, who was my 6th seed, 6th ranked team last week. And kind of putting together from those 6 at the time who had the best season, who was doing the best things, who was trending one way or the other, who had the most top 20 wins, and kind of going through that. And so it kind of ultimately led with the barn not really falling much, but I was like, okay, at the same time they have St. Augustine this week, so I don't want to be in a position where I have Del Bar moved down too much. Then they come back and they beat St. Augustine, and then all of a sudden I have to justify moving them all the way up to number one versus I can just keep them where they were at, and then kind of move them willy-nilly where I needed to move them based on if they won or lost. And because they lost again, that's now another loss coming in consecutive weeks. So we had to move them kind of down at least a spot. And so by moving them down a spot, now I have them head to head with Seton Hall Prep, who they lost to. So I had to move them above them. And then all of a sudden now they're above Chatham. Well, Chatham beat them head to head. So now that I got to move Chatham above them. And so they just continue to kind of drop down until they, landed up against Bosco and they beat Bosco. So that's kind of where my rankings kind of fell there. Gil's a little bit different because I think he still has Del Barn above Seton Hall, but he's not in here to kind of talk about that. But mine was just the trickle down effect. By dropping them down just one spot, teams below them beat them head to head, and I'm gonna always move a team that beats a team head to head if they're next to each other, unless they have like that crazy parity triangle like the Lakes, Bergen, and Ramapo had earlier in the season.
Yeah, that's why. I mean, like I said, I don't know. It's like for like hedging my bets isn't how isn't what I would have done. But again, that's I get what you're saying. I just think that it's like I feel like tomorrow when this graphic's posted or whenever it inevitably gets posted, it's just gonna be like what like all of a sudden. And like I think that, and again, Gil's not here to defend himself. He's not here to comment on it. But it's like you know like we take the whole season into it, and like we don't try and overreact, and it's like okay, we didn't overreact to the Chatham loss, but now it's like it feels like in some ways we're overreacting to the St. Augustine loss that, like I said, I feel was as it's now becomes like St. Augustine's closest game. They had a closer loss than it was for Seton Hall and all those things, but
Yeah,
um
just I fully agree. There's
yeah,
no debate. Again, I just think the realistic only perspective I truly have is the Barn just lost another game.
yeah,
Uh, what is that? Two in a row? Did they beat anybody between Chatham
I don't think
and St.
so.
Augustine? So two losses in a row. I can't not move them off the second seed in the state so I moved them down one spot. And because I
Yeah,
moved down one spot, that has to turn into two more spots because the teams that they're right
yeah,
below
yeah.
beat them head to head. So I mean, like yes, it seems a little bit more drastic than it really was. But let's say if Don Bosco was four, I would probably still kept a Barn at three. But again, I value those head to head matchups there.
They did. I apologize. They did beat Fairfield Prep in between.
Fair
So
prep again,
yeah,
good win for sure.
yeah, yeah. I just and I know people are just going to look at the graphic. They're not going to listen to this. I wish more people did, but I do think that there is some nuance to it, and it's not just like a dramatic overreaction.
I agree. I will see the perspective of the people that do not listen and they just see a graphic and want to judge everything off of that. So I will
What
understand that.
and just because you and I have had this conversation, what do and some people have commented, and it kind of stemmed from the like Mountain Lakes versus Ocean City, like uh, momentum. Where do you stand on like factoring in like momentum in rankings and in like um how it frames your thinking?
I think when I get to this point in the season, it's momentum has an impact for me, but it's still winning and losses. Like if they're having a lot of momentum, they're having big wins. I mean, I think your win over Robbinsville has had just as much momentum for your team as St. Augustine beating Del Barton. But again, they're not the same in the grand scheme of things. The way I watched your game and I saw your energy of your boys and how excited you were as a coaching staff after you won that game and handily. Like that's momentum, but like it's not something that I'm gonna be like, oh well, that team looks like they're juiced up, like they're about to start playing their best across when it matters most. Like so, let me just throw them into a spot. Like, for me, it's a little bit more projecting a tad. Still obviously what actually has happened, but if I'm kind of going back and forth between one or two teams. Like, do I think, again, with Mountain Lakes has what should be a cakewalk until, their North final for sure, if not, just the Group 1 final in general. So they're going to win a lot of games and going to be at the end. And that, usually when you do a big ranking, the teams that win state championships or get to state championships are probably teams that are ranked. And so that's kind of like my kind of thought process here when we get into that 1 week of here we are now in the playoffs.
All
Before we just kick it back to Glock, I will say because these are worth mentioning. That we don't have to talk about them, but Seton Hall did beat up on Gill a little bit. I think it was like a 15-6 final, and Don Bosco beat Gill 12-6, and then Saturday, Bridgewater beat Lakes. I think it was like 11-6. So
Yep.
I know we didn't touch on them. I don't think there's much to say, but I just think it's worth mentioning. It's just and like we said, Mainland they upset Ocean City to win their the Ocean County Championship. So congrats to those guys.
Yeah, I don't know if we mentioned the Kingsway won their
Oh
little,
yeah, they beat Washington Township.
yeah,
So
they got redemption and won their cup, and then Bosco won in 4 overtimes against Fairfield Prep or someone along those lines as well. So a lot of good things still happen in New Jersey for sure.
And I'll say something about Mainland as we get a little bit later in the podcast too. So, ready for my news now?
Drop it.
yes.
All right. So, and I need you both to brace yourselves, Tharp, especially you. You might need a pillow to go sit on or something.
Because non-public C.
It's not. It has nothing to do with non-public C. It's going to make him actually more angry because I am going to praise the NJSIAA. At the state seating meeting, I was not there. I was told this by someone who was in attendance at the meeting, and state officials who were in the room prior to the seating committee doing its thing. The discussion of PowerPoints was had, and state officials said out loud, "We recognize PowerPoints works well for pretty much everything we have, except for ice hockey, girls lacrosse, boys lacrosse. And we recognize that they're the concerns that everybody has about there not being points for a good loss. So we want to figure it out." Now, I don't know that they've identified a process of exactly how they're going to figure it out, but that is going to get talked about at the end of the season meeting about what the process to figure it out is. I am fairly certain that it was going to be, if it has not already, been requested of the NJSIAA to at least invite the and I use this term very lovingly because I call myself one, the nerds from NJ.com, who are the technical people who help create the PowerPoint system, to at least extend an invitation to have them in the room at the end of the season meeting. I think that request was made from the Coaches Association, or at least if it I hope will be made. It was told to me that it was going to be made. So that we can understand what a good process to try to give suggestions for how to fix it would be. And all of that to say that if we don't have something in place before the season begins next year, that the situation as is current, PowerPoints to qualify, lax numbers to seed, can exist for another year until we get it in the way that we want it. So we are not hell-bent on going in the direction of only PowerPoints come hell or high water because we have decided that next year was the year we were going to do it. I think it's a very reasonable take by the state because as I have always maintained that them wanting to gain control of the system in a way that makes sense. Just the concept of that makes sense, that the state would want to do that. So good news for boys lacrosse en masse. Bad news for you, Tharp, because you don't get to throw hate at anything that the state might do, because this is a very reasonable decision by the state. But I think a positive takeaway.
Well, Well, they're still using PowerPoints in some form. So that's still a little, I could
Yeah,
still throw a little hate.
we gotta, this is the purpose of
Although it's been
mediation.
2 years, Paul, let's hop on the phone. Let's discuss non-public B coming back, girlfriend.
Here we go. Not happening. Not happening.
I think if I got to sit in a room and you got to mediate the conversation, Glock, I think I could spell out some really great points for Mrs. McGuire about why non-public B should return.
uh, well, I listen. If we ever had even in the fantasy world that it exists in your mind, if that type of audience ever existed where we got that type of a meeting, I would be pushing a much more common sense agenda than that particular one. But that's another off-season podcast that maybe we
I
can get
think she
into.
and I would actually get along. You guys,
I
you guys
don't.
actually know me. You guys know me like in as a human, not just like the the podcast. I think I would be able to like have a conversation with her and it wouldn't end like catastrophically. I think you have to acknowledge that.
Well, what are you, a third grader? I mean, I hope it wouldn't end catastrophically. We're adults. We should
No, but
be.
I think like you guys love to like be like, oh, Thorpe's an idiot. Like,
No, I do not actually believe you're an idiot. I believe you're impulsive. Those two things are very, very different.
well, I'm just saying. It's been 2 years. We're gonna have the conversation again.
All right. Let's move on as we get here to the final 2 minutes of this podcast. And we'll get to the stall warning. And with the regular season firmly in the rearview mirror now, I wanted to just take stock of what were our favorite games of the regular season. And I kind of thought that because we each have kind of dual roles where we participate in games, but we also watch a lot of lacrosse that maybe we don't either officiate or coach in, that we could pick a game each that we were a part of that was our favorite for whatever reason. And you can tell us why it was your favorite. And then also your favorite one that you watched that you were not a part of. So, Tharpy, I will let you go first.
I'll start with the one I watched first because I think it's a little less uh talking. But I think for me the one game that really jumped out was the Scotch Plains West Morris game. It was a game that Scotch Plains ultimately won 14-11. Um, and I think for me, I really like watching that game because it was just like it was like high level but like chaotic high school lacrosse. And I thought, it showcased Luke Gauss specifically, all the great things that he brings to the table as a face-off guy and in the field. So that was just fun to watch. And a very, very close second was the Morris County final between Dunbarton and Chatham. What an incredible game. But for me, my favorite game I coached this year, and Nova kind of alluded to it, was this week actually on Tuesday we went down to Robbinsville and played them, and that game meant a lot to me for a lot of reasons. You guys know I'm from Robbinsville. I went to high school there. The head coach down there, John Demkowitz, was my classmate. We played together. Their two assistant coaches, one of them was one of my best friends growing up. His name's Tyler O'Neill, and then their other assistant coach is Chris Penna, who was my high school head coach. So it was really cool to just go home, literally go home and kind of talk to my guys about growing up in Robbinsville and playing there, and getting to see those guys. And especially Coach Penna. Coach and I talked for 10, 15 minutes after the game, and that was really rewarding. I know I was not the easiest person to deal with as a high schooler, and now being a coach, it was kind of a full circle moment for us to just reconnect and be able to just talk as adults and tell them about my life and having a family and stuff. And then to top it all off, it was a game that was supposed to be at 4 o'clock, and we were in the midst of that heat wave, and next thing we knew, the game was played at 7 p.m. So it's under the lights, and a couple minutes into the third quarter, lightning pops up, and instead of going into the gym, we go into our bus and spend about 70 minutes on the bus with the boys, just couldn't smell worse if you tried. Just a bunch of sweaty, wet uniforms. But we're blasting music. The bus. It starts with strategizing. We were allegedly going to be man up coming out of the lightning delay. And then so we talked about man up, and then Ryan's coaching up the defense, and you spend enough time on the bus that all of a sudden you start blasting music, and next thing you know, we come out and end up pulling away and winning 13-7, and game ends after 10 p.m. Under the lights. It's something you never forget as a player. It's something I'll never forget as a coach. So I apologize for being long-winded. I know Gil gets DMs sometimes about my long-windedness, but that game meant a lot to me, and I couldn't be prouder of our team. I know Ryan felt the same way. That it was something as coaches we'll never forget. So, but again, all love and respect to Robbinsville. I have so much respect for those guys, and as an alumni, it's great to see the success they've had this year. So, it was. But it meant a lot to go down there and pull out the win. And my mom was able to be at the game, and she still lives right there. So just all around a really special day.
See, and I agree with you. And this is a shameless plug for a self-promotion of the podcast. If you go back and you listen to the first overtime episode of the season with Seton Hall Prep head coach John Sveck, he talked about that weather delay that they had to endure last year, during the Curse Cup. And he talked about just that's what he thinks the kids are going to remember. It's the playing music on the bus. For them, it was in the locker room. And he said, we can't talk lacrosse this whole time. Like, relax, go in the gym, be with each other, but no phones. That was his rule. He said, I don't care what you do, but you can't be on your phone. And just spend the time with your teammates and make some memories. And that's what I think he's going to remember. And to your other point about the game ending late and all that stuff, I couldn't agree with you more. You talk about the memories that are gonna stay with kids for the rest of their lives. I officiated a game in the first round of the NCAA playoffs the year Pat Spencer was a senior. It was Loyola, Virginia, down at Loyola, and we had lightning, and we didn't face off until after 10 p.m. And that was first face off. And Quint must have said, "Lax after dark," like 10 times during the broadcast, but I think he was rightly playing it up because it's something I will never forget, and I wish we were a little closer to home afterwards because the next day was Mother's Day, but I digress. But it was still fun and pretty cool. So good for you, Tharpy. Nova, you want to go or do you want me to go?
Well, it don't matter.
Go ahead then.
I would say my favorite games that I ref this year would probably have been just a doubleheader that we got to work on together, both that ended in overtime. First was driving up to driving up to Westfield to see Westfield versus Ridgewood play, which ended up being a great game, overtime win for Ridgewood, and then literally having to hop in our car right away and get down to Lawrenceville, which was on paper my biggest high school game that I've ever ref for sure. The number 3 versus number 5 team in the country. So I was even, honored to even be considered to, be in good standings to, be even on that type of game. So, and again, just seeing that level of play and atmosphere was, through the roof. So I would say those games, in terms of on the field, being the R on a county championship certainly is one I'm going to always remember. But, the people you work with certainly have a huge impact on those type of those games and environments when you're talking about things that you're going to remember. And then games I watched, Starp already alluded to it. That Shenandoah Barton game in the finals was absolutely electric. Just seeing the atmosphere, seeing how excited everyone was on every big play, then seeing the celebration afterwards because they kept the camera on, well after the celebration. Like that's what it's all about, representing your town with everything that you have, something they've never done before. Like just have all that encompassed into one game under the lights at night, like how lacrosse should be played when you're trying to play for a championship or a high level game. Like that is exactly what I envision and games I want to be watching.
No doubt. So for me, you had talked about that day, that Saturday in April, where you and I got to travel together and hang out all day. If you went that direction, I had a backup in mind. My first thought was that Westfield Ridgewood game, because also Mike Downer, an official, longtime official, a fantastic human being, was honored by the town of Westfield and the Westfield lacrosse team as Mike Downer Day. Mike was diagnosed with ALS within the last year, and as some people know, my dad passed away from ALS. It'll be 10 years ago this summer. So certainly that has, an emotional place in my heart for sure. So being able to be on the game where Mike was honored was a big deal. But since you went that direction, the game that I was a part of that I thought was really cool was Mainland Ocean City the first time. And the reason it was cool is because it was played at a park in Linwood, and they did a girls and boys doubleheader. It was an 85-degree day in the relatively early part of the season, and that matters, right? You get good weather. It seemed like the whole student bodies from both schools were there because it was a tremendous atmosphere. It ended up being a 2-goal game. We talked about the Ocean City won the game. We talked about Mainland beating Ocean City in the Cape Atlantic final, and I can tell you that I have, number one, an immense amount of respect for Joe Latore, the Ocean City head coach. I think he's just been fantastic for that program and for lacrosse in Atlantic County. But the Mainland Ocean City rivalry that's going to happen for as long as Luke Swedland is the head coach at Mainland. Luke played at Stockton, and that was the first game that I had officiated where he was the head coach, and he's doing fantastic things at Mainland. He's doing the right things with those guys. They play smart. They play disciplined. And I just can't wait to see what that South Shore rivalry now produces over the next couple of years. So that, and I also, to your point, Nova, I got to work that game with my friends. We drove. Me, Duban, and Fuchs drove down there together. My goalie in college, one of my best friends. You can't really beat that when you get to do a game like that where you get to spend an hour and a half in the car with your friends in two directions and go have dinner and have a drink after the game too. It's probably another reason why it was my favorite. My favorite game to watch, I think, was, and I'm going to go back to the Maselli train, Scotch Plains Westfield, overtime, just a tremendous play to win the game. Staying in bounds and throwing it up the field. It's a pretty cool game to watch. High level lacrosse for sure. So a memorable, I think what we're getting at here overall, a memorable regular season in 2026. And it sets us up, I think, over the next couple weeks for a tremendous NJSIAA playoff leading into the Cursed Cup. And over the next 4 weeks, we'll be with you every step of the way. Any parting shots for today, boys?
No, best of luck to all the teams of the playoffs. To the seniors that play their last lacrosse game. Best of luck to you guys in your future and what you're trying to do. But that's it's the best sport. That's why we do a podcast. We want the best for this sport.
Yeah, like Nova said, just want everyone to stay healthy through the postseason and cherish every game you got left. I know I still think back to my last high school lacrosse games, and I tell my guys all the time, I wish I could go out there and play one more time. So really cherish it. And I love doing this podcast with you guys. It's been awesome, the amount of love and support we get from coaches and stuff also, reaching out and saying that they love the podcast. So Glock and Nova, thanks to couldn't be no one else I'd rather do this with than you guys, and Gil, of course. But thank you to the coaches and fans and parents who listen, and you guys make it all worthwhile. So we're excited to see this through to the finish line with you guys.
The NJSIAA playoffs are upon us. We'll be with you every step of the way. The next 4 weeks will be interesting. For Bill Tharp and Anthony Terranova, I'm Keith Glock. Thanks for watching, and we will see you next week.